Farmer's Guide Consultancy. In this publication, tomato foliar fungal diseases, tomato foliar bacterial diseases, tomato foliar virus diseases. Septorial leaf spot. Septorial leaf spot is a soil-borne disease that only infects tomato leaves and stems. The spots are large in diameter and are distinguished by a dark brown edge with a white or gray center. As the disease develops and more leaf spots develop, the areas surrounding spots will turn yellow, causing leaves to wither and die. The disease spreads from the older leaves upward and can severely inhibit yield and lead to sun-scald injury and fruit cracking. If tomato plants became infected with septorial leaf spot early in the growing season, plants can become 100% defoliated before fruit set. Early blight can infect tomato foliage and fruit. On tomato foliage, early blight first appears as circular irregular black or brown spots on the older leaves of the plant. As these lesions enlarge, a series of dark concentric rings develop in the center of the spot, creating a distinct target pattern over time. The tissue surrounding the early blight lesions can yellow and cause the leaves to drop. Severe infestations of the disease can cause 100% defoliation of the plant. Early blight can infect the fruit through the calyx or stem attachment in the immature green or red stage and can produce distinct target-like lesions similar to foliar infection. Defoliation caused by early blight can reduce fruit yield and can leave the fruit open, sun-scald injury. Late blight. The disease will first appear as treats grayish indefinite patches in older leaves and stems. These spots enlarge in moist weather and may produce white fuzzy growth on the underside infected leaves. The fungus will also attack fruit, causing a dark greasy colored lesion with a slightly sunken, rough surface on green fruit. These lesions may enlarge, turning the whole fruit brownish black. Infected fruit often remain firm. Severe infestations can cause foliage to brown and shrivel. Fusarium wilt. Fusarium wilt is a soil-borne pathogen that attacks potato, tomato, eggplant and pepper plants. Disease fungi, Fusarium oxysporum, enter through the roots and interfere with the water-conducting vessels of the plant. As the infection spreads up into the stems and leaves, it restricts water flow, causing the foliage to wilt and turn yellow. Disease symptoms often appear later in the growing season and are first noticed on the lower, older, leaves. As the disease progresses, the younger leaves will also be affected and the plant eventually dies. In many cases, only one branch or side of the plant shows symptoms. Fusarium wilt can survive for years in the soil and is spread by water, insects and garden equipment. The fungal disease develops during hot weather and is most destructive when soil temperatures approach 27 degrees Celsius. Dry weather and low soil moisture encourage this plant disease. Verticillum wilt. Yellow blotches on the lower leaves may be the first symptoms, then brown veins appear, and finally chocolate brown dead spots. The spots may be confused with alternaria or early blight, but they are not definite, nor do they develop concentric bull's-eye rings. The leaves may wilt, die and drop off. The disease symptoms progress up the stem, and the plant becomes stunted. Only the top leaves stay green. Fruits remain small, develop yellow shoulders, and may sunburn because of loss of leaves. Infection takes place directly when the fungus threads enter the root hair. It is aided in its entrance if rootlets are broken and nematodes have fed on the root system. The fungus grows rapidly up the xylem, or sap-conducting channels. Its activity there results in interference with the normal upward movement of water and nutrients. The fungus produces a toxin that contributes to the wilting and spotting of the leaves. Diagnosis involves making a vertical slice of the main stem just above the soil line and observing a brown color in the conducting tissues under the bark. This discoloration can be traced upwards as well as downwards into the roots. In contrast to Fusarium wilt, Verticillum wilt discoloration seldom extends more than 1.02 inches above the soil, even though its toxins may progress farther. Gray leaf spot. Foliage of plants from seedlings to mature plant stage is affected. Brown to black specks appear on both the young and older leaves. The lesions expand slowly into 1 to 2 mm diameter round spots that remain brown or develop a gray center surrounded by a yellow area. Sometimes the center of the spot dries and falls out, forming a shot hole in the leaf. Lesions may be numerous, causing entire leaves to turn yellow, then brown and drop. Lesions rarely coalesce. Defoliation can be severe, leading to sunburn. Damage of the fruit. Similar lesions may occur, infrequently, on the younger stems and petioles. Fruit are not affected. Leaf mold. With this type of fungus, it is rare that the fruit is infected as well. The signs to look for are all on the leaves. The tops will begin to develop small, white, gray, yellow, or pale green patches. The underside of the leaf will have a fuzzy feel that is purple in color. Sometimes the fuzz will be olive green. The fuzz is actually spores of the fungus. The infected tissue becomes yellowish-brown and the leaf begins to wither, eventually falling off of the plant. Eventually the whole plant will wither and die. In the rare case that the blossom of fruit is infected, the mold will appear as a black sore-like lesion. The black can grow to cover over half of the surface area of the plant or blossom. Tomato leaf mold affects ripe tomatoes as well as green tomatoes. Powdery mildew. Symptoms of a powdery mildew infection appear as white, chalky spots forming all over the plant, including stems, flowers and fruit. They spread rapidly, affecting large areas of the leaves and stems. The leaves will then turn yellow, die and drop off. Plants will have a lower yield and shortened fruiting season. The fruit flavor will not be as strong as it would have been without the fungal infection. Gray mold. Gray mold is a fungal disease that can occur on all above-ground parts of the tomato plant, and it often starts at a point of damage or on any decaying tissue. Fallen flower petals resting on leaves, and pruning wounds on stems are examples of infection points. The most characteristic symptom is a gray-brown furry mold, which are masses of spores of the gray mold fungus covering the infected area. When shaken, clouds of spores are released from these infected areas. The infected areas can expand rapidly, covering whole stems, leaves or petals. Stem infections can girdle the whole stem and cause wilting of the plants above the infected area. Flower petals are particularly susceptible. The fungus may grow from the infected petals into the fruit. Bacterial canker. Bacterial canker, which may occur in tomato as a primary, systemic, or secondary, foliar, infection, shows a wide range of symptoms. Primary infections originate from infected seed or from invasion of the vascular tissue of young seedlings. Symptoms, which may not show up until several weeks after infection, initially appear as wilting and downward turning of the lower leaves. The wilting generally progresses upwards, unless the site of infection is in the upper part of the plant. Wilting is often seen only on one side of the leaf or one side of the plant. Plants may collapse and die, especially if infected at a very early stage. Generally, plants survive but are stunted, showing some or all of the symptoms described here, depending on their environment and stage of growth. Tomato foliage infected with the canker organism has distinctive black leaf edges with no spotting on the interior of the leaves. Sometimes a thin yellow border is present between the dead leaf margins and healthy tissue. If an infected stem is cut lengthwise, a light brown discoloration may be present in the vascular tissue, most noticeable at nodes and just above the soil line. As the disease progresses, this turns reddish-brown. Light-colored streaks are often visible on the outside of the stem. These may later darken and break open into cankers. With severe infections, a yellow ooze may exude from a cut stem when it is squeezed. Fruit may develop relatively small spots with light brown centers, generally surrounded by a greasy white halo, 3–6 mm in diameter. These are known as bird's eye spots. With bacterial canker lesions, this white halo generally remains as the fruit ripens, while in the case of bacterial spot, it disappears with time. Bacterial canker may also cause a darkening of the vascular tissues within the fruit. The fruit may show a black peppering at the vascular bundles under the calyx scar. Canker bacteria can grow in the vascular bundles within the fruit, all the way to the seed. This can result in visible yellowish strands from the stem to the seeds and internal infections in the seed. With a secondary foliar infection, leaves develop brown-black margins with a thin, yellow, chlorotic band. Leaflet edges may curl upwards. Fruit may show bird's eye spotting, as in a systemic infection. Secondary infections, no vascular system involvement, often have minimal impact on the crop, especially when initiated later in the season. Bacterial speck. Bacterial speck lesions may occur anywhere on the foliaged stems of fruit. Symptoms are very difficult to visually distinguish from bacterial spot and can be confused with young, early blight lesions. On leaves, symptoms appear as black specks, usually no more than 2 mm in diameter, which are usually surrounded by a yellow halo. Speck lesions sometimes cause distortion of the leaf, as the infection restricts the expansion of leaf tissue. Lesions are often concentrated near leaf edges, and in some cases, leaf margin burn resembling bacterial canker may occur. When numerous, lesions may coalesce, and entire leaflets may die. Severely infected seedlings may become stunted. Only green fruit less than 3 cm in diameter is susceptible to infection by the bacterial speck pathogen. Small, less than 1–3 mm, slightly raised black specks develop and are often surrounded by a narrow green to yellow halo. Lesions are usually superficial and can be scraped off with a fingernail. Red fruit are not susceptible to infection, likely due to a lack of entry points for bacteria. Fruit hairs, which may break and allow bacteria to enter, are only present on young fruit. On fruit previously infected, black lesions remain after ripening. Bacterial spot. The bacterial spot pathogen may produce lesions on all above-ground parts of the plant, leaves, stems, flowers and fruit. It is difficult to reliably distinguish bacterial spot from bacterial speck based on visual symptoms, especially in the early stages. Initial leaf symptoms are small, circular to irregular, dark lesions, which may be surrounded by a yellow halo. The lesions tend to concentrate on the leaf edges and tip and may increase in size to a diameter of 3–5 mm. Infected leaves may develop a scorched appearance. When spots are numerous, foliage turns yellow and eventually dies, leading to defoliation of the lower portion of the plant. Bacterial wilt is caused by the pathogen Bacterium ralstonia solanacearum. This bacterium lives in the soil and will work its way quickly through the roots and up the stem of the plant. The bacterium clogs up the system, preventing water and nutrients from reaching the leaves, and the plant dies. Bacterial wilt usually happens where plants have been cut, injured or weakened insects, or simply by cultivation. The first symptoms are wilting of the youngest leaves, usually during the hottest part of the day. The leaves stay green, but eventually the entire plant wilts and dies. High humidity and high soil pH encourages this bacterium to thrive. If you suspend a cut stem in water and you notice a white slimy substance ooze into the water, then it's defiantly bacterial wilt. Foliar virus diseases. Tomato yellow leaf curl virus. This virus is transmitted by an insect vector from the family Aelurodidae and order Hemiptera. The whitefly, commonly known as the silverleaf whitefly or the sweet potato whitefly. The primary host for TYLCV is the tomato plant, and other plant hosts where TYLCV infection has been found include eggplants, potatoes, tobacco, beans, and peppers. Due to the rapid spread of TYLCV in the last few decades, there is an increased focus in research trying to understand and control this damaging pathogen. Some interesting findings include virus being sexually transmitted from infected males to non-infected females, and vice versa, and an evidence that TYLCV is transovarially transmitted to offspring for 2 generations. When tomato plants are infected with TMV, the first symptom to appear is the appearance of the trademark mosaic pattern on affected leaves, caused by the reduction or loss of chlorophyll, chlorosis. As conditions worsen, leaf growth is stunted, with compression of leaf tissues, as well as irregular serrations along the margins of leaves. As plant health worsens, leaf curling appears, as well as telltale fern-like leaf formations. This eventually results in full-scale stunting of plant growth, and significantly reduced yields. Tomato spotted wilt virus. An infected tomato has a number of visible characteristics. Symptoms include bronze-colored or dark spotted leaves, stunted growth, dark streaking in the plant's terminal stems, and possible dieback of the plant's growing tips. The fruit may be deformed or wilted, with a reduction in fruit quality and yield. Ripe fruit has a distorted shape and may be covered with red and yellow ring-like markings.